if you hadn't opened your mouth during Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if you hadn't opened your mouth thinking that nobody in America would see you, you can't then slap back and clap back at the audiences out there who are calling you out on it and then pretend like, how did everybody politicize this? You started it. Man up. You started it. Take the responsibility for it.
Renegade Online.
And the follow-up to that was this. Mackie tried to walk this back. And I'm not even going to try to go through. His walk back made no sense whatsoever. He said what he said, and then he tried to say that he didn't really say it. No, you said it. I mean, if he had stopped at that point, he could have, but he then continues on about, what Captain America stands for is truth and integrity and all this other kind of stuff. You just said America's not a defining term, and then you go on to define all of these positive qualities that you would want and that you would. Anyway, you can't walk it back, Anthony. People are getting more upset about this, and people are making the comparisons between Harrison Ford's character in the movie as an overbearing president of the United States who's also the Red Hulk, and trying to ask if Disney tried to pump him in here as a Trump allegory, which, let's be honest, it probably crossed the minds of several of the writers and people at Marvel. Let's be frank. With everything else that we know that we just discussed, let's be honest, we know what this is about. But the argument could be made that maybe not, it's just coincidence. Okay, but what's Anthony Mackie's response to it? Mackie has seemingly drawn a firm line in the sand against political narratives surrounding Captain America: Brave New World. Here's the thing about that. I think you kind of started them yourself. If you hadn't opened your mouth during Falcon and the Winter Soldier that we just talked about, if you hadn't opened your mouth doing a press junket in Rome, thinking that nobody in America would see you, and you said what you said, you can't then slap back and clap back at the audiences out there who are calling you out on it and then pretend like, how did everybody politicize this? You started it. Man up. You started it. Take the responsibility for it, right? He says, he told the press, and I quote, "Chill the F out when it comes to comparisons between the film's President Thaddeus Ross, Red Hulk, played by Ford, and U.S. President Donald Trump." Mackie made this statement while defending Brave New World as, quote, "literally the best movie it can be." Now, wait a minute. I got something to say about that. Again, it's a choice of words in this situation. Considering what we know about the production hell that has been this film, 2 reshoots following principal photography, 2 massive reshoots. We're not talking about, a week or 2 of pickup shots to fix a shot or to change a line or something. No, we're talking about major rewrites, reshoots, all new VFX, at least 1, if not 2 times, maybe more, since original principal photography. People were talking recently about this film saying, oh, it's confirmed. It's got a $180 million budget. That's fugazi, okay? But this movie has gone through a bunch of reshoots because it kept failing, allegedly, and I think there's a lot of truth to the rumor, personally. It went through a lot of reshoots because it kept failing with test audiences. Test audiences hated this movie. It was terrible. And again, it must have been really, really bad for them to turn around and spend an enormous amount of extra money. So he's saying this is, quote, literally the best movie it can be. Knowing what we know, it really sounds like Anthony Mackie is kind of apologizing for this movie in advance. I think he knows that it's probably a stinker and that it's probably going to be a stinker in the box office for what a Captain America movie should do. And again, people are going to make comparisons to previous Captain America films unadjusted for inflation, which is going to be the fatal flaw of this. I probably suspect this film is going to see similar audience drop-offs to what we've seen for other Marvel movies not named Deadpool and Wolverine. It's going to be significant, probably 40 to 50% or more. Okay, once we actually adjust the ticket numbers. Literally the best movie it can be. Sounds like we hobbled and cobbled together the best pieces from 3 reshoots or whatever it was of this film to come up with the least offensive Frankenstein version of this movie that nobody asked for that we could possibly muster. I think that's where they are with this. I think that's what Anthony Mackie is going with this. I don't know if he intended it to come across that way, at least not publicly. I think in the back of his mind, he kind of knows. I think Anthony Mackie, like the rest of Disney and the rest of Marvel, have all been reading a lot of the articles. They've seen a lot of the stuff flying around in the entertainment sphere on YouTube and on websites like that Park Place talking about, you know, the delay of the film. Why? The reshoots of the film. The rumors about the test screenings. They can't acknowledge it, or they don't want to for obvious reasons, but they all know that people's perception of what this movie is set to be is not great. Now, it may do $90 million over its 5-day opening weekend, but again, if it tracks like most every Marvel movie, again, except Deadpool and Wolverine since 2021, after the first 5 to 7 days, roughly half of the box office is going to be in the till. Marvel movies have been, for the last 4 years, very heavily front-loaded. Some of the most front-loaded films that reach theaters. Because people have checked out, and the people that are really still interested in Marvel are going to go see it right away. And the normies just don't care. They've checked out. They've become completely apathetic to this. But Mackie goes on to say that apart from this is literally the best movie it can be, emphasizing that it, quote, stays in the lines of Marvel. It stays in the lines of Captain America. I don't know what that means. If it stays in the lines of Marvel of the past, 3.5, 4 years since Phase 4 started in mid to late 2021, then it's screwed. It is absolutely screwed. If it's staying in those Marvel lines, it is going to be a dumpster fire. But when pressed by Esquire magazine about growing speculation that Ford's President Ross, who transforms into the volatile rage monster Red Hulk, was meant to serve as a Trump analog, or a Trump analogy, I think maybe is what he said, Mackie shut it down. I hope as a country we're tired of all the political jousting. Yeah, Anthony, we are tired of the political jousting. Guys like you need to quit doing it. When you come out and make the statements that you do, what the hell else are we supposed to think? Oh, I'm sorry. I know what it is. Let me address that. I totally get it now. So Anthony Mackie, I get it. You believe that your comments, especially when you make them over in Europe, they don't count, right? They don't count at all. That's not political jousting because you're just expressing your opinion, and your opinion, may I speculate for a moment, your opinion as a black man, by definition, can't be political jousting. As a liberal black man, I should say. I don't know. Is that what you mean? Because when you come out and you make the comments you do, and you were in an entire series on Disney Plus that, quite frankly, was nothing but political jousting. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The whole thing was a leftist screed of bullshit. So when you do it, and your comments suggest that you effectively agree with the tone of that show and how it presented race relations, how it presented domestic terrorist groups like Antifa. Cool. Oh, but when people that don't agree with you express their own opinions, many times based largely, if not exclusively, on what you yourself have said, then it's political jousting. Let me tell you what. This comment from Anthony Mackie right here, I find to be honestly the most ridiculous and offensive portion of this right here. I hope as a country we're tired of all the political jousting. Let's just go to the movies and chill the F out. We could have made this mother effer yellow, meaning the Hulk, and it would have been a problem. I got news for you, dude. I've been doing this on YouTube now 4 years. That's all I've been asking for 4 years. Because the politicization of these films and Hollywood has come from guys like you. That is the same slap in the face as Bob Iger, the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, who is the company who made this film with Anthony Mackie in it, of course. It's the same thing as Bob Iger saying that we need to tone down things, the tone down the rhetoric, tone down the politics. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact quote. It's basically almost 100% on what Bob Iger said. Remember what he was referring to? It was referring to all of the fight that Disney got itself into, that he got Disney into in Florida. And I know people are like, well, that was Bob Chapek. Again, I'm going to remind folks that Chapek originally did not want to be involved in that political fight in Florida. And it was the Bob Iger acolytes that were still polluting the high ranks of Disney. And Bob Iger, who tweeted it out himself to try to sabotage Bob Chapek, that Disney should do something. And the board forced Chapek into it, and we saw what happened. But it was the very left-leaning cabal at the Walt Disney Company that Bob Iger put in there that caused that fight. And then Bob Iger wanted to cry victim after they got their ass handed to them in multiple courts of law. Federal court, state court. Disney will say, oh, they settled. Oh, it was fine. They settled it. It was both sides. It was 50-50. No, it wasn't. No, it really wasn't. Disney was the loser in that case. You can call it what you want, but Disney was definitely the loser in that case by far. Ron DeSantis, he didn't give up anything. The Florida State Legislature, they didn't give up anything. Central Florida Tourism Oversight District that took over what used to be Reedy Creek, they didn't give up anything. Not really. All the powers remain. There was no debate about it. That statement from Anthony Mackie strikes the same tone as Bob Iger's statement of we need to tone it down. Won't start nothing, won't be nothing.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.